When I started the Fabled thread nearly 6 years ago now, I had literally no idea how to market my business. I came from a finance, chemistry background, never worked in e-commerce, and really didn't know how you find an audience for your product. But over the last 6 years, I have tried pretty much every possible way to find an audience because regardless of how good your product is, if you don't have an audience, you don't have a business. So I wanted to film something that I wish I'd had at the time. Another small business just telling me how do they market their business, telling me all the channels they use, and that's what we're going to do. So before I go into that, let me just tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, so in case you don't know, you have some context for everything I'm going to say. I run the Fabled thread. We are an embroidery and craft kits business based in the UK. We sell kits that do various different kinds of stitching projects, needlepoint projects, but in addition to that, we also do a lot of framing, sell paints, we sell all sorts of haberdashery supplies, various craft supplies, all targeting a sort of modern maker. They're luxury kits, we're priced at the upper end because we're all about the experience. I started the business because I felt like there was a gap. There were a lot of people who would really benefit from the meditative power that embroidery brings, but there weren't a lot of kits that necessarily I personally would have wanted to hang on my wall. And therefore I wanted to create pieces that were visually appealing enough that someone would want to make it. And when they chose then to make it, they would get to experience what it's like to sew. Now, we are based in London. We have a team of 9 people, and in that team we're split up. So we've got a team that's all operational, who do all our making and dispatching of kits. And then there's me, founder, who dabbles in everything. We've got Jen, who supports me on all things marketing. We've got Meg, who works with me on the content side, but mainly geared around our membership program, which I can talk about separately, but it's important you know she exists because she's very important from a marketing perspective. And then we also have Izzy, who works with me on product design side of things. And those people are all critical in enabling us to do the amount of marketing we're doing at the moment. Now, our overall goal as a business is to grow. We have been growing really well over the last few years, but we want to grow more. We're ambitious. And whilst our orders are mainly UK based, we sell about 60% of our orders into the UK, 40% of our orders go internationally. So that's a lot to the US, to Canada, to Australia, to New Zealand, mainly, to be honest, Anglophone countries, probably because I'm producing videos like this when I'm speaking English. And over time, we have tried all sorts of different things to market the business. I started the business in COVID, and so you immediately got that massive uptick of loads of people on their phones, loads of people looking for these things. Then we came out of COVID and we had a few really challenging years for finding audience because people who had picked up these hobbies then did stop. Now we're back into a real rhythm, and we have been for the last 2 years. We found our channels, we found how we focus on them, and we have a real strategy about it. And so I'm going to go through each channel now and tell you what we do. Instagram was always our primary channel. It is the only channel I had really for the first 2 years of the business, and it is the one that launched the business. But as we found in 2023 to 2024, we'd become overly dependent on having just one route to market, one route to our audience. And so we focused on reducing the amount of effort we put into Instagram, making sure that it's working for us rather than us working for it, and then diversifying to other channels. So we have several different types of content we post. First up, we have interiors, lifestyle type images. These images always perform really well on the Instagram algorithm. Instagram loves our interiors photos, and so it shows them to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But the issue is they're not very high conversion posts because actually a lot of people who maybe like them, a lot of people who see them, aren't at all interested in sewing. And so it's important to scatter a few of those in because they help us with reach. But we don't want to go too heavy down the interiors front because actually that doesn't really convert. So the second kind of post we do is more sewing based informative ones, and they can be things like reels, they can be individual static photos but more of embroidery. They never do as well from the Instagram algorithm reach, but we find that they're really important for educating the audience we have on Instagram and making sure the people who are there and who do follow us and who do like what we do as a business get to see some of the relevant things to what we are actually making and selling. We always know that those ones won't perform as well, but we think they're quite important to have alongside. Then we have personal pieces. So they could be a carousel post that's kind of with points around why do we price the kits the way we do? Or they could be a day in the life of one of our team members. Or it could just be some random behind the scenes snaps. Or it could be a video from one of our customers. Those ones are really hit and miss. Sometimes the ones which we have put loads of effort into and we think are going to do really well, do really badly. And the ones which we have put no effort in, recorded within 5 seconds, do really well. Sometimes the ones we put loads of effort into and we think are going to do really well, do really well. But those ones are your bit of your wild card. But they're also the ones that for our existing audience and people who are really kind kind of proper customers who want quality and want something new, they really value those posts because they're generally the ones where we show who we are and we're way more authentic. You know, you see the reality of our business through those ones. And so they're the important side of kind of, we're not just putting a corporate front out here. We're a small business and this is personal. And then the final type of post we do is the one which I think is far more for us as a business to make sure we really assert what we care about. And they are our informative kind of educational posts. And we put out these kind of random posts and they'll be about a particular art form or something. So it could be something like a post on sitular art. It could be a post on how to print from Tetra Pak. It could be something completely left field like the textiles of Joseph Frank. They're not going to appeal to a lot of people, and we do tend to find they do really badly. But I think they're really important because if someone does start to follow us, I want to show that we're not always trying to sell what we do. We are kind of very interested in empowering an overall creative life. And so by having these in and amongst our content, we know they're not going to perform as well, but I think it actually makes us a far more interesting business than if you just got the same repetition of us just trying to sell you our products over and over again. Now, on those ones, we do find the odd one does really well, but they always are linked to an article or something wider someone can read on the website. And so we tend to find we get quite high click-through from them, even if we don't actually get a very high reach. In terms of how often we post, we tend to post a new post every 2 days. We try not to leave it 3 days, but we try not to do it every day because it's just not necessary. When it comes to stories, we try to keep stories focused more around what's actually happening in the studio. So what are we doing that day? Are we packing kits? Are we doing things like that? Our stories don't get particularly high reach. I don't think a lot of stories do. And so for the people who do go look at the stories, we want to make sure we're not just repeating what's happening on the posts. We want to make sure that we're showing them something different. There's lots we don't bother with on Instagram. We don't do any sort of combined giveaways with other brands. We don't do sort of collaboration posts. We try not to do anything too gimmicky. We don't do anything sort of that feels uncomfortable for us. So I'm not going to suddenly start dancing to some latest trend. We don't do a lot of kind of clickbait stuff. We really try and avoid kind of clickbait ones if we can. Things like customer complained about this and so this is how I'm going to respond to it. You know, that sort of thing, which can get loads of attention but just doesn't feel very nice, friendly in a way. So we avoid all that stuff and we focus it far more on those kind of 4 content categories. So that's Instagram. And we don't think beyond that. We try not to overthink it. We just pick a strategy and go with it rather than continually reinventing ourselves and thinking the algorithm's going to suddenly love us. The other thing we do is we don't worry too much about our results on a weekly or monthly basis. We just see how we're trending over 2-3 month periods rather than focusing too much in the short term. Right. Number 2, in terms of channels, is Pinterest. Now, there are a million ways in which we could do this better because at the moment with Pinterest, we literally do nothing beyond having an account. Our shop is set up on Shopify and so we have auto linking set up. So when we post something on Instagram, when we post a new product into Shopify, all those photos immediately go through to Pinterest. And we don't do anything else. I barely ever go on it. I can't remember the last time I opened the app even. But we do still get a good flow through of maybe 1,000 people a month come to our website from Pinterest. And whilst that's not a vast number, for the fact we do absolutely nothing, it's pretty amazing. Our Pinterest account tends to get something between like 800,000 and 1 million views a month just from people pinning our pictures. And of course, there's all that issues you have around Pinterest of people pinning the pictures because they're just using it for inspiration for their own designs and they're going to steal your ideas. But I tend to think someone might go and create one design. They're not going to go and recopy the entire business because honestly, it's really very hard running a business and particularly one which is quite as complicated as the Fabled thread. So I think you shouldn't avoid kind of exposing or putting yourself out on platforms which maybe could have that slight kind of copying practice behind them because it's still reach, it's still notoriety, and you don't know who you find because of it. At the end, I'm going to say some of the things which we want to focus on, but Pinterest is definitely one of those. So the third channel is YouTube. So we started our YouTube channel probably 18 months ago properly now, and we have a few different formats of videos that go out on YouTube. These videos are all kind of to service different types of customers. So let me explain each type of video that we put out on YouTube and the format we tend to stick to. So the first is educational tutorials. We have a load of videos just about embroidery itself. Now, some of those could be really specific, like I'm going to explain to you how our botanicals kits work if you've bought one. I'm going to show you what stitch goes where, how to do it. The other kind of educational one might be more just a single stitch base. So I'm going to show you how to do a Pekingese stitch. These are obviously very much on brand and about embroidery, and they are for people who want to do embroidery, needlepoint, there's some painting ones, but it's very much about the craft that we actually sell. A lot of those are geared towards kind of existing customers. A lot of those are geared towards people who might want to discover us. Maybe you see one of our Pekingese stitch videos, and in that video I show you a few clips of different designs that we've got that involve that stitch, and you might therefore think, oh, I'll go look at that website and see what goes on there. So those ones are quite good kind of core central videos, but they're not revolutionary. They're very simple, straightforward videos of me showing you how to do a particular thing. We find some of them perform incredibly well. We find that some of them only hit a few hundred people who are actually stitching that kit. That's okay, because those videos are still really important for those few hundred people that do use them. The second type of YouTube video we do is a far higher intensity one for us to produce, and that would be a video a bit like this one now. Or we have a whole series called Finding Inspiration, where I go through different methods to choose colour palettes, how to find inspiration, how to draw your own designs for inspiration, how to use tools in the design process. Those ones really take a lot of work, because they not only mean that I share an awful lot of creative process for free, I don't hold anything back, so we're giving away a lot of our kind of intellectual property in a way, but also we put a lot of effort into doing a good edit on them, so we kind of have lots of overlays going on and lots of things to engage the viewer. Those ones perform super well. They get thousands and thousands of views. We get to see that they get shared a lot of people find us through them. They're really good, findable, searchable videos. We don't do as many as we could do on them because they take a lot of time. We only have so many hours in the day, and so if we can manage to get one of those out every 6 to 8 weeks, that's good enough for us, because they have an evergreen content. These videos keep performing well month after month, and one of our highest performing videos is one that's now one of our first videos, nearly kind of 18 months old now, and it still performs really well every month. And as a sidebar, as much as we have ads switched on in those videos, you really don't get much income from YouTube on ads. It's very minimal. And so you very much are doing this more for reach. We're not trying to be a content creation platform. This is not about trying to get revenue from ads, but anything you can do helps. So then the third kind of content that we put on YouTube is far more personal content, and they will be long form stitch along videos. It might be long form kind of day in the life, week in the life ones. They tend to be sort of 30 to 60 minutes, and they really aren't going to appeal to a lot of people. But the people they do appeal to, they make a huge difference to. One of the important things is that we don't need to be everyone's cup of tea. We don't need every video to hit virality. What we need is to make sure we've got videos that serve different purposes. So if I am going to stitch and talk to you for 60 minutes about whether we deserve attention as a business, or what is this concept of attention, and how do people kind of monetize other people's attention. If I want to pick a narrow topic like attention and talk to you about it, I have to accept the fact that that's probably only going to really appeal to a small number of people who are going to watch that start to finish. But for those people, it helps build real connection. So as a channel, I think we've got about 10,000 subscribers, but we have an awful lot of watch hours, because we have a lot of people who do sit there for those videos. They get their sewing out, they get a cup of tea, and it's like watching a TV programme. Those videos are super important, and they're ones that I really enjoy recording, and we try to do at least one of those a month. If not, when we're in a good flow, we do one every couple of weeks. So it's somewhere in that range. And then the final video we do on YouTube are some shorts. And that basically just means we repurpose the videos and reels we create on Instagram and we put them on YouTube, because it would be foolish not to. They don't tend to do super well. I really don't like gimmicky short format. I actually much prefer longer form content. I just find it's much easier to record. I find it more valuable. I hate the sort of pressure of a 30-second slot to say what you want to say in, as you can probably tell. So we really don't focus on those as a priority, and we really aren't that interested in getting sort of virality on shorts. We'd far rather have some better performing long form videos than 1 million views on a short. Altogether, if we can get one YouTube video out a week, that means we're doing really well. Since I had a baby, that's gone down a little bit, but that's starting to pick back up again, and that is our aim, is always to have one YouTube video go out a week. And then the final communication channel that we focus on are email newsletters. And email newsletters are gold. They are the most important of all the channels because you are directly talking to that person who has already shown an interest in what you do. It is by far and away the highest conversion channel, but it's also one of the ways you can really annoy someone. And so we're super careful on how our email newsletters work. At the moment, we tend to send 2 newsletters a month. We have one at the month end, which we sort of call our studio diaries, and then we have a middle of the month one. They tend to focus on different content. So our middle of the month one tends to be just a long form article about something which we think is going to be relevant to our audience, but it's not salesy. We really try very hard to make our mid-month one not something where we're heavily selling anything we do. So that mid-month one could be an article around 40 things you could do, see, make this winter. It could be an article on what to do when you don't feel like doing anything. It could be 5 ways to choose a colour palette. It could be top tips for decorative painting. Articles which are relevant to the business, but someone could read in isolation, get value from, and not feel like they have to then go and buy something off the back of it. We aim for it to be a really high value email for someone to receive, and one that they can read at their leisure. Then at the end of the month, we tend to have a newsletter which will be far more things that we've been up to this month, a roundup of what's going on and any new launches that have happened. And so the way we tend to do those is we intro it with a letter from one of our team members. So that would either be written by me or it might be written by Jen. And we'll have proper candid photos in the intro about various things that have been going on in the studio or just in life in general. Like, I've got a little 6-month-old baby. We'll include updates about what's going on with the return to work, when she's starting nursery, things like that. Very personal things. Then we'll go on to tell people about new products. We'll give them links to all the new articles on the journal. We'll give them links to any new YouTube videos. They're long. They're a really proper long newsletter. And so we don't want to send too many of them. And we know that some people will dip and dive into little bits of it. But the things that we monitor on them are our open rate and our click rate, and both are really high. We tend to average around about a 70 to 80% open rate. And we tend to average about 20 to 30% click rate, which, if you know anything about newsletters, is really good. We put an awful lot of work into making sure our newsletters feel valuable, and we make an awful lot of effort to not sell heavily through our newsletters. We don't try to sell things we've already done. We don't just send people loads of product summaries, because if they're interested, they will go to the website anyway. I love receiving a newsletter where it feels personal and it feels like it's new, and that's what I want us to achieve with our newsletters. I'd intended on this being a sort of 15-20 minute video on how we market our business, but as I can already tell, I'm going on a lot more because I hope there's loads of valuable things to talk about in terms of what we do. So I'm going to split it into 2 parts so you don't get overwhelmed. If you enjoyed this part, then we'll be coming back for a part 2 where I can go through all the various other angles of marketing that we focus on.